Hi and welcome to the quick starter on the first move sidelines, so to speak. So everything that is not the e4 c5, not e4 e5, not e4 e6 the French, not the e4 c6 the Caro-Kann. So everything else is covered here in this quick starter. That includes the Pyrrhic defense with e4 d6, Scandinavian with e4 d5, the Alekhine with e4 knight f6, the Philidor with e4 d6 followed by knight f6 and e5, and a bunch of sidelines such as first move b6 or first move a6 or first move knight c6. So a lot to uncover, but we have a little time, so let's jump straight into it. This is a quick starter. So e4. First of all, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3. Now the Philidor with e5, I recommend to take and trade queens, queen d8, king d8, and bishop c4. In this endgame, although the pawn structure is symmetrical, black king lost the right to castle, and we will follow up with very dynamic play. King e8 is met with powerful move f4, opening the position while the king is in the center. See the chapter on the Philidor for that. Bishop e6, which used to be the main move, is met with bishop takes e6, f e6, and f3, and it's very instructive in this pawn structure. Our main issue is knight on c3, which is in the way of the c pawn. The weak d4 square is a problem, but you will see the knight will often retreat even to b1, followed by c3, and that will fully harmonize our positions. For example, bishop d6, bishop e3, king e7, knight h3. This knight is heading to f2, another good knight maneuver. Knight a6, knight f2, knight c6, and now knight b1 is very strong. Preparing c3, taking the sting out of knight c6, knight d4 idea, and then this knight will redeploy itself on d2, from where it can go to c4 or b3, which are much more promising squares for the knight. In particular, the c4, of course, but in case of b5, then b3 can also be a good route forward. That is for the e5. Many players try to avoid it by going knight b7, but now we have f4, very ambitious setup. After e5, knight f3, ed. We can play queen d4, using the fact that the knight has been prematurely developed to d7, and the queen cannot be hit by knight c6. So in general, as a rule, I believe in the opening when black cannot, or colors reverse as well, but in this case, if white queen is on d4, if black cannot hit it with knight c6, if there is a pawn on c6 or the knight is not on b8 anymore, then queen on d4 is actually a well-placed piece. And that is the case here. After c6, I recommend bishop d2, intending long castle, and after, for example, d5, long castle, bishop c5, queen d3. Black often sacrifices the pawn with castle, but after ed, there's no compensation. cd, knight d5, knight d5, queen d5. White's got great pieces, a safe king, and no reasons to regret capturing the pawn. The next opening we should look at is the Pyrrhic defense, 3g6. Against that, I recommend knight f3, bishop d7, and bishop e2 system. I will briefly mention that after e4, in case of g6, we play d4, bishop g7, knight f3, d6. This looks similar to the Pyrrhic, knight is still on g8. Now we'll go bishop e2, and now black pretty much has to go for knight f6 anyway, and after knight c3, we'll get to the same very position, the Pyrrhic defense that we just looking at now. So here after bishop e2, castle, castle, black has a few options. Knight c6 is kind of trendy now, d5 and then knight b8. White is much better here after bishop e3. We've got more space. For example, c6, we go a4. We stop black's counterplay with b5. And after a5, queen, knight d2 is strong, using the fact that v6 square has been weakened by the a5 pawn. Knight d2, knight d7, black just doesn't have moves here. Of course, black can play differently. For that, I certainly recommend you to check out the Pyrrhic chapter. Now let's look at 6c6, another popular move, but not a very good one either. We go for a4. We're always happy to stop the expansion with b5. Knight d7, h3. No need to rush here. h3, preparing bishop e3, guarding from knight g4 potentially. And after e5, d. This combination of e5 push and the g7 bishop is not really good. Bishop staring at the e5 pawn is a rather sad piece, and now bishop c4 is thematic. This bishop, on the other hand, is really perfectly placed, and white is much better. Another idea to definitely keep in mind is that if black goes queen e7, which they often do, they get skewered with b3, bishop a3, and black already is in a great deal of trouble. These two powerful bishops are going to do a lot of damage there on diagonals. Also, knight g5 is a move to keep in mind. That, in short, will be our setup against the Pyrrhic defense. Now let's move on to the Scandinavian with d5. I recommend to take, and knight c3, the main line. black has 3 queen moves, the old main line queen a5, the queen d6, which was at some point trendy, and queen d8, which is very passive. So I guess queen d8, we just go d4, knight f6, knight f3. Very often we will go for long castle plans. For example, after bishop g4, h3, takes. If bishop h5, then g4, bishop g6, knight e5, the bishop gets targeted here very badly, so it's very unfortunate for black. Knight d7, we can avoid the trade with queen e2. Knight e5 d is coming now. And if 6 bishop f3, queen f3 c6, then I really like this ambitious move g4. Queen d4 is too dangerous, as you will see in the chapter on Scandinavian. Bishop e3 with eventual long castle is good. And after e6, g5, knight d5, knight e4, we intend bishop d2 long castle and one way street attack here, with black also being down in development and having less space. And also lack of bishop pair is going to be telling. Queen d6 is the move that was popular at some point. Now we go d4 once again, obviously knight f6, knight f3. These moves so far have been automatic. Here black has a few options. The most popular ones are a6 and c6 that are covered here. If a6, g3 is very good. We not only intend to develop the bishop to g2, but also to f4 potentially. And the pawn on g3 does a great job defending that bishop on f4, supporting it rather. Bishop g4, h3, bishop h5, bishop g2. Black goes for knight c6 and long castle setups usually, but now we have the strong move d5, knight d5, and bishop f4. As promised, we develop this bishop. Queen c5, bishop e3, queen a5, and now we can sacrifice this pawn. Note after castle that black is not even close to finish their development. That's going to be a problem. After rook d8, queen e2, they can win a pawn with knight d5, but after knight d5, bishop d2, it's clear that black will not make it out alive from this opening, with the king still stuck in the center. Queen c5, c4 is strong, knight b6 is just rook c1. Defending the pawn for now, preparing to hit the queen further. And again, black will not be able to finish the development. There are just too many moves that they have to make, and we are already coming with those ideas like g4, knight e5 in the position. And that is for this dubious a6 system. 5c6 is much more solid. I recommend knight e5. Going for space in the center, knight d7 and f4. A simple line will be knight b6, now g4, grabbing more space in the center and the king side, restricting the bishop on c8, which is a problem for black. After g6, we just go bishop g2, intending to castle. We don't need to do something too direct, we just grab space, and after bishop g7, castle, the engine likes to grab space on both sides of the board. a4, first of all, potentially preparing a5, but also b3, bishop a3 is now an idea. Then after a5, f5 is very strong, restricting this bishop. And we don't rush next, we can play king h1 or bishop to f4. Black is facing long-term issues due to the lack of space, and bishop on c8 not having any squares available on d7. It's not really developed, and cramps the queen on d6 even further, so quite a bad position for black. Queen a5, that is the main Scandinavian. There are also sidelines like queen e5 and queen e6 covered in this chapter, by the way, in the Scandinavian chapter. But here let's look at queen a5, d4. Again, d4, knight f3 is coming. Knight f6 is the main move, knight f3. Bishop g4 is very dubious here. Black should go for bishop f5 setups. If bishop g4, we go for h3, bishop h5, g4, bishop g6. Now knight e5 is good, but also knight d2 is very strong actually. After e6, h4, if black goes for the natural h5, then knight c4, queen a6, knight e5 is bad news for both the queen and the bishop on g6. Instead, black goes for 5 c6 or bishop f5. They usually transpose. After bishop f5, we go bishop d2, and now c6, bishop c4. Here let's look at the main line with e6, knight d5, queen d8, and knight takes f6. This knight d5, knight f6 is an important idea. In the systems where black hasn't yet played knight d7, we can do this trade, and black is facing an unpleasant choice whether to take with the queen, where queen will eventually get hit by bishop g5, or with a pawn. Mostly they take with the pawn, but after castle, knight d7, they're hoping to utilize the g-file. But after rook e1, we have an idea of going bishop f1, g3, and bishop g2, neutralizing the pressure along the g-file. And if queen c7, which is the most common move, there is a direct issue here for black with knight h4, bishop g6, and bishop e6. The sack is very strong. Fe, rook e6, king f7, and queen e2, and white is just positionally dominating. Their threats will slowly come, but more importantly, black is unable to get any play or free themselves or safeguard the king. All the pieces really lack squares, and black lacks coordination in this position, so it's really, really bad for them. That is the short story on the Scandinavian. The Alekhine, knight f6 is another provocative opening. We go for e5, the main line, knight d5, and now I recommend the 4 pawns attack, c4, knight b6, d4, d6, and f4. Here the main line goes d, fe, knight c6, bishop e3. The move orders here are very important. If you start with knight f3, black gets to pin the knight very nicely with bishop g4, so we go bishop e3 first, and after bishop f5, knight c3, prevent knight b4, we're ready to meet it with rook c1, and after e6 now we go for knight f3, bishop e7, bishop e2, castle, castle, f6, this is the main line. After ef, bishop f6, it's important to play this precisely for white, because even though we have better pawn structure, the d4 pawn is attacked by many of black's pieces, and we need to neutralize that pressure. So we go queen d2 first, queen e7, rook a d1, rook a d8, and now important is to go king h1, not the tempting queen c1 because of e5, d5, knight d4, when complications work out for black after taking everything, bishop g5, queen a1, knight a4, bishop f3, bishop e3 check here is very strong. So the point is that after king h1, on the same line no longer will work for black because king moved out of the check. And after h6, h3, rook d7, queen c1, now the e5 move no longer will work. And black doesn't quite have enough counterplay against the d4 pawn, for example. After king h8, bishop g1, rook d8, c5 strong. Often when d4 pawn gets attacked too many times, c5 comes to rescue now. Knight d5 blocks the rooks from attacking the pawn, and bishop b5 neutralizes the knight on c6, and white is regaining control of d4 and e5 squares with a very good position. Black has a lot of sidelines in the Alekhine as well, so I definitely recommend you to check out that chapter. But that is for the main line. One knight c6, knight f3 usually transposes to e4, e5 openings. While if black goes d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, usually g6 will transpose to our Pirc chapter as well. Bishop g4, this is what many beginners are playing. This is not very good. Bishop e2, e6, and d5. ed, and black has to part with the bishop, bishop f3. And now just bishop f3 gives white bishop pair and more space, but gf is really strong and instructive. Knight e5, h4. We keep pushing our pawns here. And black lacks space and squares for the pieces. After bishop e7, h5, castle. This alpha 0 style h6 move is very good. g6 and f4, knight e7, bishop f3. And now our king will be tucked away on f1 if needed to g2. And black just really passive, doesn't have any squares for the knights, any active squares at least, and long term black is facing very grim and very passive prospects. Finally, this chapter also covers 1b6. We played d4, bishop b7, bishop d3. e6 is the most popular move, and now knight f3, knight f6. It's possible to go queen e2, but much stronger is e5, with the idea that after knight e4, queen e2, f5 or d5. Against both, we can just play knight to d2, trade this knight. And we've got superior development, we'll castle long, and rook g1, g4 will blast the king side open, with the black king not being able to reach safety in this game anymore. So this covers the sidelines. Again, I feel there's definitely more to uncover, especially in the Scandinavian and also definitely in the Alekhine chapter. So definitely do that. But for now, you're equipped. You know what's up in these openings in my course. So that was the quick starter. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next chapter.